Hola community, welcome to Blender Today Live. We are back and there is so much to talk about. There is all kinds of, there is a new release, a new LTS release. There is performance improvement. There is even news around EEVEE next. I am hyped. You are hyped. Everybody in the chat, thumbs up if the audio and video, it's all everything okay. But let's get, oh, there is a new render farm manager released. What the heck? So much can happen in a couple of weeks. So let's get started without further ado. You know, people say without further ado and they add ado. No. Okay, let's see the big news. This big news, Blender 3.3 is here. You probably are using it. If you're not, then it's okay. You know, you can wait. If you're waiting for those updates that, yeah, but after every release, especially the LTSs, the long-term support releases, they usually add a new, they release a new version that actually has all the fixes. So I'm a bit blown out. Oh, the audio. Video is blasting. Ah, the audio. Okay. But yeah, there is a task already on Fabricator on developer.blender.org where you can see the development going on regarding the fixed releases. So, you know, developers try to make Blender as stable as possible, but there are sometimes fixes that don't make it to the first release, or maybe people are using it only when the actual release happens. So that takes time to fix. And there is a thread that has the, I'm overexposed. Yeah, I am overexposed. But the fixes, just ignore me. I can hide my face. Actually, there you go. Now it's like a podcast. The task, you can see it, is in the T10749. It's in the description, like everything that I'm seeing. And you can read in the list here that all the commits, actually, I'm seeing some spoilers already. Cryptomat passes. Oh, no, this is 3.3. Okay, so actually, there are some things that are from 3.3 that I'm gonna be sharing with you today here. All right, so the next change release, and for that I'm gonna enable my face again, my blown out face again. Look at that, there is a new version of Flamenco. The beta was out already for a month, more over, yeah, several weeks. Developers have been working, well, developer, there is like the one, Severin is working on pretty much every side of Flamenco nowadays. I worked a bit in the UI, and Francesco also was involved, but this is Severin's baby. Flamenco 3 with several fixes, 13 major fixes and 28 minor improvements since the 3.0 beta release. There actually have been a few beta releases since then. You can read the change log, and if you click on raw file, you can actually have a better look at what was introduced. And actually, the version is not backward compatible. So if you were using the beta, like especially 3. Like the very first beta that came out in August, actually probably before, you have to reinstall it. But it's now super easy to install, and there's even a video about how to run it in 5 minutes on Windows even. So but yeah, many questions people ask, is it possible to use multiple OSs? Yes, you can use multiple OSs. There is some documentation in flamenco.blender.org. It's now an official Blender project. It's no longer this thing that we use and everybody knows that we use, but it's on its own domain. It used to be on flamenco.io. That domain will redirect to flamenco.blender.org because people are working on it here at the studio, and the studio is using it for rendering. So it is now an official Blender Foundation supported project. All right, so what else? No, that's it. That's all the maintenance. The 3.3 break plugins. It's Hivanes asking in the chat. Did it break plugins? Well, what you can do first is ask the developers of the plugins that you are using. And also, if you want to see if the internal ones in Blender, that the ones that come with Blender, no, because they're maintained officially by Blender developers, or the community maintain them officially, so they shouldn't break. It's not saying that it won't, but it shouldn't. And 3.3 LTS in the release notes you can find under Python API. You will find the breaking changes, if any. Of course, this is not gonna say if your specific add-on broke or not, but you should contact. That's why we have add-on developers. You should get in touch with them if something is broken. All right, I think we are Jacob Video Graphic. Am I late? No, you are at the right time, because I'm about to start talking about what is actually new in Blender, because up until now I just mentioned the new flamenco, the new 3.3 release. I hope you liked the page here. I was working on it while I was on a hotel in Mexico. You can imagine how great this went. But no, the release actually went pretty smooth, but so much. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I hope you liked it. Some people were, yeah, had good comments about my silly puns, but I hope you like this in particular. And thanks to the people who has contributed with this. All right. So I went with full pack like colors. I hope nobody got eye damage from that. All right, let's see what's new in Blender this week. Let's start with the compositor. So we have a real-time compositor already for many weeks, but it now keeps getting better because there are more nodes being supported, such as the blur node. This is the first one that I tested, and it wasn't working because the nodes are being added slowly and steadily, but it is now working. You can blur in real time in the viewport. Isn't that crazy that the regular blur in the compositor, it's so slow, but now we can do it in real time? Eventually the real-time compositor is going to be used for the regular compositor, and everything will be nice and fast. Bokeh blur, it's also migrated to the new system, the same as pixelate. Pixelate. It's a bit confusing because I was at a festival in Mexico called Pixelatl, and to me I read pixelate, Pixelatl. It's a play on words for the Nahuatl language and part of the Mexican culture language. All right, next improvement, scale. The scale node. If you're a Blender nerd, you may know that scale is the name of Sintel's scale is the name of the dragon, and the one word that Sintel yells all the time in the film is scale. Sorry, you have to be very nerd in terms of Blender knowledge and trivia to know that scale is the name of the dragon. All right, dilate, erode. This node has also been ported. I think it's probably the last of the filter ones implemented, right? I think. But yeah, dilate, erode, and that is all for the compositor. There are news regarding compositing, but just not the compositor itself. All right, so let's see. Shall we switch to performance already? Yeah, performance are always good news. So let's talk about performance. All right, your Blender is now faster. Yes, much faster. How much faster? Well, depends, because it touches many areas. One of those areas is the in subdivision. So actual like editing in like moving vertices around. Yeah, so well, especially when you have loose edges, like loose points around, like vertices where edges without any face, it's just crazy how slow it was. On the left, you can see how slow is not. I'm gonna move my mouse so you can see that the motion, how it should be, and then bam, instantaneous. What kind of magic is this? It's hands magic. So yeah, subdividing every single vertex on every loose edge. Blender iterates over all the edges to find the neighbor. So it was doing too much work, and now it's a bit smarter about it. So yay for speed. You know what else got faster? But like, I don't know, this is hard to measure how much faster. It's just crazy faster, much faster. All right, so the other part of Blender which got faster, it's a library. It's called it's a section, an area mixed space. What does it mean? Well, it's used all over the place. For example, let's see some numbers. So depends on the scene and on the file. Like in some areas it will work when, what was it mentioned? It was mentioned, it's one of those things that is used everywhere in some operators, or when at the beginning of the cycles render, or in EEVEE when doing something that changes the geometry. For example, animating on a model using normal maps, or I guess also like shape keys could be. But yeah, something that in 3.1 took 6 seconds, and in 3.2 took 4 seconds. In 3.4, because this is new, this is for 3.4, I believe. Yeah, September, so this must be 3.4. It's now 0.9 seconds. So much faster, from 4.6 seconds to 0.9. Again, this depends largely on your files, on your setup. So crazy update. Thank you, Lucas Stockner, 97. Gee, I hope that's, I think, yeah, that's the year he was born. It's young people these days are insane. Next change. In this commit, but also by Hans, what he forgot to add the title, he added here. Sculpt, make storing a mask and face set layers optional. What does it mean? That that it's an improvement when you are sculpting and not using masks or face sets. So if you're not using that, Blender can be a bit smarter and actually be faster when using the subsurf modifier from 148 milliseconds to 126 milliseconds. When you do sculpt overlay extraction, from 24 milliseconds on every redraw, so every time you move the mouse there was a delay on milliseconds. Not anymore, that is gone. And memory usage is also lower, from 252 megabytes to 236 in this test. Of course, that is gonna vary greatly depending on your changes. Okay, let's see what else. How is the chat going? Legends, thanks for releasing for free. But it's not for free. I actually, my talk at this festival was not was about how to me, the fact that Blender is open source is better than, it's a better fact, it's nicer, I like it more than the fact that it's free, that in money. In Spanish we have two different words for it, so it's easier to communicate, but here free, yes. I mean, like I mentioned, I also miss it. I use Blender 276 and here we are. Yes, it's good to keep up with what is changing. I understand you might be using Blender 276 because of the requirements, because 276 was a big change in requirements. I think 276, it was OpenGL 3. Yeah, required OpenGL 1.4, so it makes sense. And also maybe you're using Windows XP in 276. But if you don't have this limitation, I would suggest you to move to 79B, as it's a big improvement. All right, let's continue with what's new in Blender in terms of performance. If you use WebP, the web pictures, it's the thumbnailing is now much faster and also uses way less RAM, so less memory. But saving like a 4K or larger image are about 25% faster to make a thumbnail. Yay for that. Thanks, Harley. The next improvement is on mesh stuff. So this is a smaller change. Well, actually, no, not so small. So yeah, the access, remove redundant custom data pointers. So something internal. But yeah, the improvement has to do with the random access via the RNA API. So if you access this using for each get or set, it's a wise way to improve performance, but it's still faster to access the mesh via the RNA API. And cycles have also been updated to use row pointers, which means in my tests, this roughly halves the cycles mesh creation time from 0.19 to 0.1 seconds for a 1 million face grid. Nice. Hans, what brings you to the land of optimizations all over the that's another reference to Sintel. What brings you to the lands of the gatekeepers? I wonder if people in the community also remember lines from open movies. I think it's just an issue with us that watch them way too many times. Okay. Next improvement also by Hans. It's a smaller improvement, around a 6% improvement on attributes. So anything that has to do with attributes in Blender. So pretty much anything. And actually we're gonna see more internal attributes being ported into the generic attribute system in Blender, so it should get more benefits all over the place. But yeah, so a basic test with the mesh to points node went from 47, almost 48 milliseconds to 45 milliseconds. So yay for that. The next change also regarding geometry and also by Hans. It's a test where it avoids unnecessary stuff, basically, which brings a improvement in that basic test with the extrude node. It's around 30% faster. So it takes 42 milliseconds now to calculate in this test by Hans rather than the 55 milliseconds. That is super neat. So we've seen improvements in performance all over the place, from the editing of subdivision to rendering to all kinds of stuff. And actually, in the Blender announcement, when we announced the LTS, there was one quote to it. Yes, if you retweet Blender stuff, I'm stalking all the changes. And this one, it's in Japanese, I think, so I can't read it, but by translating it, I just noticed that this user was mentioning how unusually fast cycles was in 3.3 compared to 3.2, especially on Linux. And that is interesting. Have you noticed such a big change? For example, one test on Windows required 32 minutes in 3.2, and in 3.3 it required, well, 12 minutes. So from 32 to 12 minutes. On Ubuntu, the same test takes less, because we know Linux is usually faster. The test went from 27 minutes in 3.2 to 8 minutes and a half. So 27 to 8 minutes, that's huge. So yeah, that is quite an improvement. Have you noticed that too? Otherwise, we should start promoting this. Also, the test is fairly simple. Maybe there was a big change in the way like these glossy surfaces work. But yeah, if you're watching, Daphnia Plankton, thanks for sharing those tests. Okay, what is new in other areas of Blender? Such as UV. Maybe it's GPU. No, the computer doesn't have a GPU. Yeah, no, because in 3.3, there are support for more graphics cards from AMD. So maybe that was it, but actually no, this is not. Okay, the next change is in UV editor. So there is a new operator to, it's very useful to read the name of the RNA, UV calc align rotation. So I guess it is called, we can look at the code. We don't need to, who needs a manual? So the name of the operator should be here in the definition. It's called randomize. Wait, why is it randomize? But the commit log, randomize UV transform. This is old. It was already there, and the UV should be capitalized. We already mentioned that in the last release, in the previous release. Why it's not there? Okay, so this is the new one that is called align rotation to the island. Oh, there's many operators that can do many things. Align rotation for the UV islands. So it's a new operator to automatically rotate UV islands into alignment. So it's actually two operators, right? Also adds a UV distinct selection support for the UV randomized transform operator. Okay, so yeah, that's several things. I think we need to work on the description of the commit logs. The operator has 3 modes. Automatic, we do all the edges. Geometry, which is going to use the V direction and will point into the geometry direction, so whatever aligns it. And then edge, rotate until selected edge is in the V direction. And actually, we can see the task that resolves. This task is, well, it was made by Daniel Beisted time ago, and he made it. There was a time, it's summer 2020, in the middle of a pandemic. Daniel went ahead and made a bunch of tasks, like a feature request basically, but is part of the module, and these were agreed on. And it's cool to see now Chris tackling them. So for example, the starting point, you have a UV that is unwrapped this way, and then this is how you will prefer it. And it's on a pair island, and also based on the selection and the line rotation to the world axis. So this is the axis of the world, and then this is how it's in the UV, and it's gonna use this is the desired rotation. That's awesome. So it's actually using the coordinates of the world to get the end result, the U and the V. That's so cool. Also, align rotation to the selected edge. That's, yeah, because you select an edge and then it moves the entire island with it. That is amazing. Yeah, we definitely need to work on the definition, because reading the description actually of the task makes it much more clear. This is a game change. I would call it, okay, a small game changer, but I see myself using this a lot. I'm gonna give a heart there, hearted. So cool. Okay, no, wait, no, not to Daniel. I want to give it to the okay, I will do it later. Should give it to the developer too. Okay, developer. Thank you, Chris. Okay, next. Improve UV unwrap of degenerate geometry. Another commit by Chris. It fixes the UV unwrap. It's actually a bug report that was done recently regarding the UV unwraps UVs incorrectly. UW unwrap. But yeah, mesh UV unwrap at the base of the triangle are in the wrong position. Test on 2 computers, including, okay, so it was a bug report that is now being fixed. The next change, grease pencil. The next section actually is grease pencil. There is a number of improvements done to the outline operator. We've seen this in the previous episode, I think, or the one before, that you can now, you've probably seen it already. You select a stroke, you run the outline operator, and it will just make geometry around it, basically. The thickness was fixed in the last time we talked about it, but now there is an actual parameter that it will always, instead of using always use 1, the value of 1 fixed, it would now use a, I think it's a factor. So it's a parameter that allows you to set how thick is going to be the outline. The next commit is related to this actually. So when you increase the thickness of the stroke in the outline conversion, the shape of the stroke changed and becomes thicker. So there's a new option called keep shape that allows you to disable it, because for artistic reasons it may be good to keep the old algorithm and change the shape. So it's like it's an option to keep the shape or not, similar to, I guess, the or maybe it should be called even or not, because the solidify modifier has an option called even. Anyway, let's continue. The outline operation while drawing in Grease Pencil, it's also now possible to tweak the thickness. It is now. And last but not least, is not related to the outline feature, but to anything. This is a operator that sets the start point of the stroke. Why is it useful? Well, for example, if you are using a cyclic stroke where it closes, when you need to close, well, it's important to know where does it begins, where does it starts. For example, when you have interpolation issues in the thickness modifier, or in general, like with curves. With curves, you can actually set a start point. So it is a similar concept. Let's talk about geometry nodes. Well, actually, this is also everything nodes. Yay, everything nodes, because it affects both shading and function nodes, like geometry nodes. The node is called mix. So you already know this one. It's new for the function side of things, but it is something you're probably used to with a shader node. It's possible to mix, well, yeah, you probably know it. Shading colors. You can mix them, but now it's more generic, and it supports many types: float, vector, and color data types. So EA for unifying things. From the user point of view, you shouldn't notice anything, because the old node, actually this patch converts the existing nodes into the new system, so you don't have to do anything. If you want to still use it, you can use it via the Python API, but it's hidden from the menus because there's no reason to use it really. And the next change, actually, it's nothing for the user, so we won't see any difference yet, but it's a huge refactor in the evaluation system. It's actually the third version of the evaluator for geometry nodes. So what is it? Evaluation is when Blender decides to recalculate stuff, for example, or how it recalculates stuff. The first, this is version 3 actually. The first one wasn't multi-threaded, it was all in one thread. Remember 2.92, I believe. Yeah, so another reason to upgrade. Then the second evaluator was actually multi-threaded, support lazy loading and stuff, and it was non-recursive. Great. The new one keeps all of that, and it makes it possible. This is very exciting. Again, no changes for the user now, but this part is interesting. Makes evaluator independent from the modifier so that it can be used in different contexts, so outside of the geometry nodes modifier. All right, for example, loops or simulations. Hype much? Yes, this is pretty exciting. So yeah, again, no user-facing changes yet, but isn't it exciting to see some of work being done in that? And also, it makes you think when people just ask, why don't you have loops? Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? Well, there's a whole system underneath that has to support it. So it actually, and if you look at the commit itself, you can, like, I'm gonna zoom out because it's just it's huge. It's, yeah, There, this makes you appreciate the work developers do. It's just like, and the it's huge. The change is huge. Okay, my face is actually blocking the scroll bar, but it just keeps going. So yeah, props developers, Jack, Hans, everyone involved. Thank you. Okay, so exciting things coming up, such as EEVEE. EEVEE is also exciting, isn't it? For example, let's see, Mac OS. Yes, news for Mac OS. There, if you were using Blender on Mac OS and using EEVEE, there are great news coming. Not today, but eventually, because I've seen a lot of work being done. There is many commits that change things under the hood for Metal support for Mac OS, which is exciting, in 2 words, exciting. But yeah, this is a fix, and if you are not a fan of pink renders, also known as when you either textures are missing or textures are or the graphics card ran out of shaders for you to draw for the texture support, that has been extended. So if you had this issue in the past, it should now give you a bit more room for activities. You should be able to load many more textures. So yeah, the limit of 16 was, now I don't know, and it doesn't mention a number per se, like what is the limit now, but go ahead and find out. It's cool though that at least the demo files in Blender now work, so yay for that. And I don't usually do this of showing things that are, you know, not final, but this change is actually in master. So there is a change in EEVEE next, the cycles X of EEVEE. The change is, it's a small one we see here. It's like, oh, register renders passes for the compositor. So yeah, so now you can do compositing with EEVEE next. That is very interesting. Again, it's a feature parity. It's not something we didn't have, right? EEVEE passes are a thing already. However, the next change is exciting because now, for the first time since womankind, you can see Cryptomatte passes in the viewport. And I was hoping this will load faster, the video, but hey, here you go. Bam! Cryptomatte, real time. All three versions of it. Object, assets, so like groups, collections, and materials. So at a glance, there, look, and even have the developer that made it. Yay, Jorun is here. Hola, Jorun. Thanks for making this this groundbreaking. I haven't seen this in any other so far, like real time, and you, like, as you move you can see the animation happening, and you just see your Cryptomattes there. So that is pretty neat. That's amazing. So you can actually see it interactive. You change materials and stuff, and it just updates. So no more guessing. You don't have to render anymore. Real time. That's so cool. Huh. Nice. Well, Jorun is actually in the chat. If we so Cryptomatte. Now this is in the preview mode, so you can actually, for cycles, it's the same, right? So Cryptomatte is global. So this is the same for cycles, right? It's just the pass available. So cool. Nice. Okay, so the next section of the day is cycles. Yeah, there are cycles. There are improvements in cycles. There is a improvement to progressive multi-jitter sampling. What does it mean? Well, there is a link, you can read about it. It's a very thorough definition, but in short words, it means better sampling, which means less noise, or less visible noise at least, which means faster renders. In a way, basically there will be less noise faster. So in a way, well, not faster, like the noise will converge and it will look nicer, faster, sooner. So yeah, super neat. There are several improvements actually regarding that. For example, Yeah, you can read more of this on this commit by Nathan Vegwell, also known as the rigger and animator in Big Bug Bunny. Yes, and following changing has to do with that, with noise sampling stuff, patterns, algorithms. The Sobol pattern, the one that has been in Blender cycle since forever, I think, I would say many, many years, it's now removed. So F in the chat for Sobol. You were good while you were there, but now there is better options. You know, progressive multi-jitter has been improved, and adaptive sampling has been enabled for the newer Sobol-Burley implementation. So it means that it's nearly feature complete. And also in the UI, when you don't, when you're using the, I'm trying to get the link. When you are using Sobol-Burley, the scrambling distance section is gonna be disabled because they don't get along together. But it wasn't mentioned in the UI, so it's good to see that. So it gives you a hint. All right. Talking about UI, let's switch. And I'm still like halfway, basically, right? So make yourself some tea or something. We're gonna keep going like this. User interface. Yes, we have visual changes. Yay, some eye candy. Thanks to Leon, the eye candy master, because this change is about the links in the node editor. What about them? What was wrong about them? Well, several things. Some of them were more like aesthetic and others, but this helps improving visibility. So, for example, there were issues with the gradients, like there was like banding in the gradients. Yeah, not great. Also, it was hard to see the different types. The thickness was like inconsistent across the different nodes, and the lines was also very different. It wasn't consistent. The dashed lines, I don't know if you get to see it with my stupid face in it here. The dashes distance wasn't very consistent. So this beautiful UI was being held back by the by code. So the dashes lines now are consistent. They're always the same length. Super nice. Then the banding is gone. It's now much nicer. And also the lines are thicker when you are close to them, so they adjust with the zoom, and they should be more readable, more easier to read. So yay for that. Plus also there is actually I can show you this I can open Blender. Look at that. I have a whole 3D program right here. If you, for example, let's add some reroutes. So now when you click and connect, you see this nice, I don't know if you get to see it, it's just so nice. When you are dragging the thingy, it used to be just chopped at the end, and now it has a little circle to tell you that it's being connected. And also it goes all the way and it shows that at the beginning of the noodle. And also when you are dragging it, when you have it selected, the entire node is highlighted. So all the way across the universe. Isn't that great? And then you can see where it's connecting. Super neat. IOCD really appreciates these fixes like this, says Evildoer. However, I noticed that because I'm using a weird UI scale that is not always like in the middle of the sentence. So sorry, Evil, like here, Evildoer, my OCD. You're gonna have OCD anyway because there will be they don't perfectly align. I think there must be something weird with my I'm also using it's just a scaling issue that I bet in one it doesn't happen. Oh, it does happen actually. It shows higher, not in the center. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Oh no. I'm gonna, but just by doing this, if Leon is watching, I'm gonna make him waste so much time. Sorry. Okay, never mind. It's just a small thing. You know what? It's not a small thing. The old text caret, the indicator, the thingy that tells you where you are in the text. So yeah, that wasn't small at all. That was huge, even taller than the selection. It changed size even when you selected things. Like the selection was higher than it was. Not great. And also it was like over the characters before and after. So yeah, not great. Until Harley put his hands on it, and now it actually fits the area. It's using the color, the highlighted color, the same color that is used in the in here. Like, no wait, this is, why is it red? Oh wait, no, here, the same that we have in text. Sorry, I mixed them up. That is purposely done like that. However, we could, why red? We could have it in blue, or not. Why not? Right? This could be. Why is it red? Well, maybe I did it red. Okay, it should be blue. Highlight, Blender highlight is blue. Anyways, much nicer, much more everything. So yay for that. Thank you, Harley. Then another fix by Harley. This is a fix only, and you're gonna notice that if you're using different UI scales, UI scales, that if you had a, like, the minimum size of the viewport wouldn't respect that, and now it does. They super nice. You know what else is super nice? When requests, I saw this on right click select at some point. Someone mentioned that the page up and down keys and the home keys were not being used in the console, and now they are. So yeah, that's actually that used to work everywhere else, but not in the console. So that has been fixed. You can now use page up and down in the console, and I guess also in the info editor. If not, it should be added to the info editor. Let me know if it's not working like that. Next, ooh, nice, pixel perfect changes to the event icon. So the ones in the status bar, like that showed your keys, the keys that you press. Well, on the top is how it used to be, super misaligned. I don't know why. I don't know the code about this, but it was just oh, look at my face also hiding the worst case scenario, the space. It was even coming out of the button. Not anymore. Page up, page down, escape. Nice. All nicely aligned. How did we release Blender for so many years with this? Anyway, the other UI change has to do with the OBJ importer exporter. The layout of the UI fields is now more consistent with other import exports, similar to the Python base code also. And yeah, animation export buttons options at the bottom, and the selected only is near the top, similar to Colada, USDIF, FBX, GLTF. Yeah. Next change. In the outliner, many changes have been done regarding the library overrides. Actually, this should have been in a separate section because it's UI, but it's also hiding functionality. So search has been hidden because it's just way too slow. It's like it can take several minutes to even load the tree. So yeah, it's rather better to not having for the time being. Although maybe it should be better to trigger it on, maybe give a warning, but then yeah, you have to give a warning and then trigger it on enter instead of typing. Yeah. The data operations for the select, deselect, hide, and hide is now hidden if you don't have anything to perform the action in. So smarter, nice. That menu is, the context menu is getting smaller when it has to, when it doesn't need to be that big. The same with library overrides. So if you don't have any ID selected where you can actually perform a library override, then the menu is not going to be shown. So yay for that, because yeah, makes things more context aware. Too bad this didn't make it into 3.3 though, because it was it's a small change, just a UI change, and maybe this could be considered a fix. No. That's too bad, because 3.3 is going to be out in the wild for 2 years at least with fixes. Next, don't show asset context menu if there are no ID selected. The same. Why would you show a menu when, like, a mark as asset menu if there is no ID selected to be made an asset? Smarter is gooder. Yes, disruptive. Exactly what you say. Smarter is gooder. How was Pixelat? It was amazing. I maybe I can talk about it at the end of the show. I just wanted to get over with the updates. What's new? All right, this one did make it to 3.3. It's a library override. When you have library overrides, you can shift click on the, actually I added this to the release notes. Well, I happen to be here. So this option here, the quick toggle, when I made this capture for the website, I had to be careful to not trigger the tooltip. I think I even disabled the tooltips, because the tooltip wouldn't say anything about this. It would tell you like click to make local or something like that, but not the great functionality of shift click to toggle the library overrides from editable to not editable. So now it's good to see that it works. It's funny though, right? You wouldn't think that when I was making this, the fix wasn't even there and the tooltip wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. Development. More user interface improvements. Add a custom properties panel to the view layer tab. Yes, this was done a few months ago for actions in the dope sheet editor, where actions could have their own custom properties, but the panel wasn't being exposed. And now the same with view layers. Now you can see the custom properties of a view layer, and I guess it's here in view layer. This is a view layer. Yay, custom props. Cool. Nice. Next. It still doesn't trigger the. I think when you click on new, it should open this menu, right? So you can choose, because what are the odds that you always want a property that is a float of 1.0? You probably always want to choose, okay, I want it to be a integer, string, byte, whatever, with different values. So it's probably better to just trigger this when you press on new. What you think? Leave it in the comments below or somewhere so I can read it later. And this is it's not very official way of doing user research, right? I just ask you during a live stream. Okay, can't believe I can't speak this much after 1 week of conference. By the way, we're working on the Blender conference non-stop, so we are gonna see the schedule soon. Maybe not this week or at the end of the week, but maybe for next week for sure, the new schedule. All right. Next, where was I? Custom properties. Yeah, all right, more smarterness coming up. NLA. The NLA has an option when you shift A to add an action clip. Well, it would, the menu would always show up even if the operation couldn't be performed because there is no track active. For example, you need to have one track active. So now it's smarter, but the thing is, the problem was that if you do shift A and then select an action, it takes a while if you have too many actions, and it could fail because you didn't have a track selected. So now I'm gonna be smarter and not let you shift A unless you have a track, a a track selected. I wonder if it tells you, it should give you a report though. Yeah, report error, no active tracks to add strip to. Select an existing track or add one before trying again. Cool, descriptive, yay, nice. Okay, the next, it's also related to the NLA. Actually, the previous one was Colin, thanks Colin, and this one is by Nate. Removed edited action tab from the NLA panel. I guess NLA sidebar, not panel. Remove the edit action tab for selected action strips in the NLA editor. It's still available in the action editor where it actually makes sense. Having it in the NLA got in the way of the actual NLA strip properties. So these are decisions taken by the module members of the animation editor. Next. That's it with UI, I think. Okay, so let's start with the potpourri section because this is a bit of everything. For example, this is mainly for libraries having updated. This is mainly if you're a TD on a or you are the person in charge of compiling Blender at the studio or something like that, and that's just to keep you updated with the libraries that have been updated. For example, OpenImageIO 2.3.18, Boost to 1.8T. Python 3.10.6. This is a small upgrade. It's not like it's gonna break all your, it shouldn't break all your Pythons, all your Python stuff. And the NumPy library to 1.23, which if you look at the VFX platform, which should still be in line with 2023, I believe. So OpenImageIO is not here. It's only on Color, but Boost is 180 for next year. That's good. So we are on par. Python also where is Python? PyQt. What doesn't say? Yeah, here 3.10.x. Good. We are in line with 2023, ahead of time. So NumPy 123. It should also be around 123. So hey, Blender is in line with the VFX platform for most of it. Good. Openvdb. Oh, actually, Openvdb has also been updated for Blender 3.4. This is all Blender 3.4. So which new version is it? It has been a pain. Newer OpenVDB forcefully trying to use more recent TBB. Interesting. So which version is it? 9.1. So from 9.0 to 9.1. And actually for next year, it's going to be 10 in the VFX platform. Unless it's not released, then it's going to be 9.x. So, okay. Cool. We are... Okay, let's talk. We're good to go with the libraries. Translations. Yeah, now translations support untitled file names. So the blend file. So for example, when you don't have a name, it's called untitled. When you have a when the name cannot be assigned to whatever you are trying to export or save, now those labels untitled can be translated. I wonder what the Spanish people are gonna choose, because Spanish from Spain and from Latin America, they all use different names for everything. That's why I usually recommend using Blender in English. The tooltips in Spanish, that's okay, but the UI, English. Next, extract Keema preferences. Yeah, they can also be translated now. That's nice. Keema. Oh yeah, the options per Keema. They were not possible to translate because they are weird things like a UI inside of keymaps. So now, thanks to Damian, can be translated. Next, IO, OBJ. Yes, importer and exporter of OBJ has been improved to support PVR extensions in MTL files, material files. So roughness, metallic, sheen, clear coat thickness, anisotropy, and transmittance is now the new supported extensions in the OBJ import and exporter. Thanks to Aras. Thank you, Aras. More interoperability. The Cryptomat passes name has been changed to improve interoperability. Blender was using, for the Cryptomat channels, it was using X, Y, Z, W, and now it's using, RGBA, which is more consistent with other, I think Nuke uses it and other external editing platforms are using it. So yay for interoperability. Actually, this patch was by Stefan Dunner, and I wonder if this could be the time. I mean, if we're changing name and panel passes, if it could be the same done for Blender internally. The output of an image is called image instead of RGBA. I think that will also make some people more happier, that people that use Blender with Nuke. All right, next. Gee, I'm still... Okay, I'm gonna end with this one because I don't think the other ones are just fixes that I'm gonna talk about it next week if we have more time. And the last one, it's also a small improvement in the position of the shader nodes when you're importing an OBJ. They were all over the place or maybe too far from the selection. Now they're nicely, it's more tightly connected. So yay for that. Thank you, Aras. And that is all for this week in terms of what's new in Blender. Was there anything that you find that would change your life? Probably if you're using the real-time compositor, now you have new nodes. If you're using Blender in general, now it's now faster. UV, Grease Pencil. Actually, we had all kinds of stuff this week. Rendered. If you render with cycles, you have new stuff this week. Wow. Actually, yeah, what a week. Damn, nice. Cool. Let's see if there is any questions on Blender today done by the community. And otherwise, I'm gonna call it a day because I have to start this show in Spanish. But hey, there is actually a thread by Nubbud, and we'll see what it's. All right, let's try to. Are they by the same person? No, actually, it's by. Okay, so almost that. Okay, let's try to do. What time is it? Let's do 10 questions if I manage. All right, so the first one by Mesaros Mate. Hola Pablo, with the heist open movie being a main focus, is there any estimate when we can expect any simulation support for the new hair curve system? The current solution is getting pretty robust, but can't wait for physics solvers or some solution for animation. Not that I can expect anytime soon, because the project is already quite into production and it should be ready like next month. Like for the Blender conference, that's the expected date. So that would be really short to be adding new features and testing them. And also remember, back in the day, the Blender Studio used to have its own branch of Blender for making the film, and now the studio is using Master. So whatever it gets added should be added to Master. We only have 2 more weeks for Beacon 2 for this space in time in where developers can add new features, like big new features, before locking it in 3.3. And then there will be a time of stabilizing things until 3.5 alpha starts and 3.4 becomes beta. Jeez, already talking about 2.5. Next question. Hi, Paulo. Glad to have you back. I'm also glad. Thank you, Blaya. Here's my question. It's not about simulations in geometry nodes. Why many people are I can expect now many questions around that. Are there plans to create procedural rigs bones with geometry nodes? It would be awesome. Even if I understand the huge challenge it would be to have a rig created with geometry nodes, but also tweakable in the viewport. Have a great evening. Thank you. You too. Yes, it's in the plans to have to move rigging eventually, like the everything nodes project basically. yes, not only relations between collections, but the team has also talked about relations between objects, relations between bones. Yeah, it's not easy, as you can imagine. Relations between objects, it's much harder. But I think the team is doing a good improvement, right? We have curves, we have geometry nodes. The next big thing to incorporate geometry nodes is going to be Grease Pencil. So there's work being done. Moko says, how do I uninstall the old Blender version without uninstalling the new one in Windows? You don't need to uninstall it, actually. It should overwrite. Blender, when you install a new Blender, it should overwrite the old one, I think. I'm not familiar. I haven't installed Blender. But actually, if you use Windows, you can use the Windows Store and it's going to update automatically for you. You don't have to install it manually. So you can... I don't have music, that's why. Right, so there was a whole discussion going on here. Next one, this one doesn't have votes, so let's start from the bottom to be fair with the people that ask first, because the questions are sorted in reverse time. So, good evening, Pablo, says Delta. A question regarding Blender and its version numbers. To me, it does not seem that Blender follows a semantic versioning all that much. Well, it's much better now than what it used to. The version number seems to follow a year-based cycle, which leads to a new increment of the first numbers every 2 years, no matter what changes actually are included. It's not like there aren't big or small project exceptions from the rule. Windows, Chrome, Firefox. Yeah, well, Chrome and Firefox are just not great. Like version 100, version 100. Yeah. But many, and especially free and open source projects, often stick to this style of versioning. So I wonder why Blender seems to be the exception to this rule. In the recent weeks, I could only somewhat follow Blender.Today, so I'm not 100% sure on this. But yeah, some element was in the new hair, compositon, geometry nodes. I don't remember, but I think it was 3.2. Was not backwards compatible with an earlier version. So this actually would not fit a minor release. Which one do you mean? No, actually Blender now doing a much better naming convention that it used to. 2.93, 283, it's just not great. For example, when Blender 4.0 comes out, it's gonna be a big release, and there are breaking changes planned already, or not. There's no like plan to break stuff, but there are many. For example, there are nodes that are being removed, like there are legacy nodes that are being removed back then. Geometry, functionality, Python API mainly, like dropping old and deprecated Python API or renaming it so it makes more sense and is consistent. That happens in big releases such as 4.0. A feature upgrade, Blender is following this, and the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 releases at the end, like 3.3.1, 3.3.2, that is semantic, completely semantic versioning aware. Blender exception example. According to Blender 4.0 is planned for, will there be these compatibility breaking changes compared? If so, what would these changes be? It's hard to tell at the moment, but they are already planned, at least from what I read in the commit logs, on, like I said, changing internally how more of the mesh is handled, or even library overrides or that kind of stuff. But yeah, no huge breaking changes should happen. Also, the new hair didn't break old hair. Both are there. The compositor didn't break old compositor, still there. Geometry nodes. Actually, from 2.93 to 3.0, there was breaking changes. 2.93 had named attributes, and 3.0 didn't have name attributes, had fields instead. And that took a while until 3.3 when things actually got fixed for 3.3, because for people coming from 2.93 LTS to 3.3, they shouldn't have any breaking. Well, they should have the equivalent setting. Anyway, next question, Vitali It says, hello, Pablo. I hope you're having a great day. I am. I had a full night's sleep. I haven't had one since Wednesday, I think. I've noticed you care a lot about UI, so I would like to suggest a couple things that I personally would really love to be changed about UI, kinda. Okay, so 3 things. Noise musgrave. Texture should use object coordinates by default. Generated coordinates gives thread check textures unless it's a cube. So 95% of the time, everyone uses object coordinates, and not having to add one more node for each texture will prevent a lot of repetitive works. Yes, that would be a bit inconsistent, but for a good reason. So inconsistent in the sense that Blender by default uses UV when available, or generated when not available. And the noise musgrave, especially the 3D versions of that, could be used better. And I know what you mean. Object coordinates, I fully agree with this one. Next, texture should use smart interpolation by default. It will use cubic interpolation up close instead of linear, which make a huge difference in quality, especially in normal maps. Recommend you compare this option by yourself. That's a good point. Although, what does it mean up close? There is a threshold, right? Sometimes these smart things are off by default, and it's not. I can't confirm this is the case. I'm just saying in general that the automatic or smart stuff are off by default because too much smartness leads to unexpected results. Maybe you have an object that zooms in and out, and like it's just going from in out of the view, and you can see the transition. But yeah, that I would say that's more of a corner case than just having objects in the scene. The next one, so I also agree with this, but I would first ask the developers if they think it's a good idea. Also, if it's called smart, why? And if it's actually switching between two, it should call auto, not smart, right? Smart is like it's doing. Smart should be smart. Automatic is just automatically switching between two. Smart is not a new type of interpolation, right? The switch is auto. Anyway, the third option, when you move keyframes, tip in the bottom of the screen says that you can turn off snapping by hitting Shift Tab and activate precision mode by holding Shift. It doesn't work there. I suggest to use 3D viewport style snapping system for keyframes. You can see which system is now using the dope sheet, the nearest frame drop down. This sounds like a bug, I think. If whatever is said in the status bar is not correct, then it should just it's a bug and should be reported as such. Like I would say bug reports should also cover UI stuff. Like, hey, this is wrong. It says this, but it actually doesn't work. Those should also be considered as bug reports. All right, I actually answer this. Let's do 3 more, and then it's over because I'm already super late. All right. I know I said more, but I'm watching your show almost every week. Well, I'm doing it almost every week, so I'm not missing much. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I made this lo-fi filter a while ago using shading nodes with a movie texture on a plane. It seems like a job for the compositor, but I have to manipulate texture coordinates a lot to achieve this. Is there a way to do that currently in the compositor? I read the 3.x roadmap blog post in the compositing section says new is support for stable coordinate system using a canvas principle. This is part of the development of the full frame or real time. I can't find it in the task, I'm getting any wrong. Oh, Omar replied on Twitter. He directed me to this document. Well, Omar is the developer, the main developer now currently working on the compositor and is working on the real-time compositor. The canvas principle is not aligned per se, I would say, to the real-time compositor. They're just different features. Although I wouldn't say the same for the full frame. Full frame has to be made the default and also enabled in the compositor. But yeah, I think if you're already talking with Omar, he's gonna be way more informed than I am. Next, hi Pablo, all of the Blender devs, how are you going? Doing great. It's possible for you or someone to do a video showing how one can upload a diff patch commit. I tried to help with a pie menu add-on that comes with Blender. I needed to use Arcanist. You don't need to use Arcanist. You can just simply upload a diff, but Arcanist makes it super convenient because you just do arc patch and he makes a patch for you and he puts it on the website for you. And then if you wanted to have it, you do arc plant or arc update, arc diff. Anyway, arc diff makes a new diff, arc patch applies a patch. But yeah, you should go to the wiki. There's really much better than a video is when you can actually just so if you search for Arcanist or like contributing there, code review or contributing code, there you go. This page, it's much better than any video, because video usually take too much time. And also any questions that you have regarding this, you can go to the chat. You can go to Blender.chat in Blender Coders. You can ask about it. Nice. Lo-fi. Okay, next. Okay, this is the last one because I'm really running out. It's by the creator of the post. Oi Pablo, I was rendering headless for the moving meditations challenge. Moving meditations challenge. A couple weeks back, and I noticed it would sometimes say 0128 if it didn't finish the last sample and record to 23/128. When I use a time limit as well, it would stop reporting each sample at random times. Could never figure it out if it was actually finishing all the samples. The frame is. It would say the frame is done, and this is intended. This sounds like a bug. I can see it from here without my glasses even. Is there a way to adjust this? Settings for headless render console logging would be interesting. But if it would break scripts that rely on overheating when the spacebar is pressed. Nice reference. Okay. Oh, now I know why I am sometimes blown out. It's because of my surroundings. So here it's fine, and as soon as I let more orange into the scene, a bit late, but the next, I know, also Scale is special to me. He and Sintel introduced me to Blender after my initial dive in the 242 days. It's the original How to Train Your Dragon. That's so cool. That's nice. Sintel, Scales, actually 242. This is why before. Actually, Sintel is from 2.5 times. Okay, speaking of time, it is time to. There you go. So I need to. Yeah, we don't have a. I need a more. A camera where I can move the measuring to here. Anyway, that is all for Blown Out Pablo and Blender Today news for this week. I really hope to see you next week because I'm gonna do a live stream next week. It's gonna be the 20th of September, and it's the 19th of September, and then the 26th is another week. It's actually Francesco's birthday on the 26th, and then the Beacon 2 is. So we have 2 more weeks of cool, exciting features coming up to Blender. What is gonna be? I don't know. Surprise. Open source is hard to predict, but it's amazing. And I will go now because I have to do the live stream in Spanish. And I'm going to share more about it in there of what happened in Mexico. It was amazing. It was a long story short. Pixelatl is like the ANSI, so animation mainly. It's not like SIGGRAPH, which is software or industry tech. ANSI is all about animation, and Pixelatl is like the ANSI of Latin America. So it was amazing to see so many people and studios using Blender, and all they need, Blender is great, but they need people. So go train people, make more tutorials, make more documentations, and the curtains are going up and I'm getting more blown out. So I think it's about time to call it a day. Holy jeez, yeah, it's super bright. Okay, thanks everyone for staying until the end. I hope you have a great week starting on Tuesday. Next week gonna be Monday at the same place and at the same time for another Blender Today live. Watch your ear holes. That was probably loud. I hope not. Okay, thanks everyone. See you next week. Same place, same time for Blender Today live.